where we have people following us as well. And also we actually have a podcast as well. So all the episodes, the recordings go on podcasts. So if you miss an episode sometime, you can just go on Spotify and follow up the episode over there. Okay, so YouTube is up and running. Fantastic. Let me see. All right. Looks like there's a bunch of people in here already. All right. So let's get started. So welcome everyone to this new episode of Sellics Thursday Live. Sellics Thursday Live is a weekly show that we do every Thursday, in which we invite Amazon industry experts to discuss strategies and tactics on how to successfully sell on Amazon. This show, just like the last two shows, will focus on Amazon advertising. We have kind of an advertising theme right now. And so today we will discuss a topic that I think is not discussed very often, which is why I think it's a very interesting topic. It's the topic that we want to bring together search and display advertising on Amazon. So typically when people talk about Amazon advertising, they talk about search, right? So they talk about sponsored products and sponsored brands. Those are the famous advertising topic formats on Amazon. But there's a big area of advertising called a DSP, or display essentially, that is not talked a lot about very often. It is also not as commonly used yet. But it is a great instrument because it helps you to go more up funnel. So essentially for creating brand awareness with display ads or banners on non-Amazon websites, this is a very good instrument. But more recently, it can also be used to retarget customers at a lower funnel. So customers who have already visited a specific product page on Amazon. So you have search and display. And now, most of the time, people just talk about search. Sometimes they talk about display. But what we want to do today is we actually want to talk about how you can combine those two, because by combining those two, you can actually create very effective advertising strategies, kind of the 1-2 punch of Amazon advertising. So today we want to talk about what the differences are, whether DSP is actually for everyone, what the benefits are of using both, and essentially also some strategies. I think Lynn has prepared not a case study, but can share some experiences from her clients. And so that's the agenda for today. My guest today is Lynn Graham, founder, president, and CEO of Beekeeper Marketing, an e-commerce general management agency. She founded Beekeeper to help great brands meet their potential on Amazon back in 2006 already. So it's been around for a very long time, has seen how Amazon has developed since the very early days. Beekeeper today manages Amazon businesses for over 150 brands and has more than 70 employees across the country, all working remotely, not just now, but already before. So it's a great culture that they have. Prior to that, Lynn had more than 15 years of experience in marketing at both high-tech companies like Apple and Sony, and also CPGs companies, large ones like Nestle and General Mills, but also smaller ones like Cliff Bar, Numiti, Lightful Foods, and others. The common thread throughout all her experiences has been her passion for innovation and entrepreneurship. And me personally, I'm very excited to have Lynn today on the show because Lynn and her team at Beekeeper are a great partner of Sellics. We're working very closely on product topics, but also on advertising related topics. So it's great to have Lynn on our show. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you so much, Franz. Thank you so much for having me. And also a big congratulations to you for welcoming your new baby son, firstborn son, just in the last couple of weeks. So
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
I missed the past 2-3 episodes because I became a father, right? But I hope I don't look too sleepy today. No, looks
no,
good.
You look good. Congratulations.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you so much for being such a great partner to Beekeeper, and also for inviting me on the show. I'm super excited to kind of share some of our learnings and share some kind of examples from some of our clients. Thank you for the introduction. Just a little bit of background about me. I started working with Amazon, I guess, 13 years ago, and I like to joke that it's like the dawn of time when it comes to Amazon, especially within consumables products. I was working for a smoothie company, and one of the Amazon buyers kind of approached me at a trade show and said, "Hey, we want to sell your product." I raised my hand and gave it a shot. We had a ton of success driving sales. I got to know those buyers really well. And when I ended up leaving that company, one of them took me aside and just said, look, there's so many of these brands that need help. I'm spread so thin, I don't have time to talk to any of them. So you say, hand out my cards. My business really grew organically from word of mouth from those original buyers, and then over the years through my clients as well. What we do is I talk about us as, I call it a general management agency for Amazon as well as other e-commerce platforms. And the reason I do that is that we do a lot of work within sales and marketing, and that's what a lot of folks do out there. But we look at it from a general management standpoint. It's not just about growing sales, but it's about doing it in a profitable, sustainable way. We have expertise not only in media, but in supply chain, in digital shelf, everything you need to know in terms of how to win on Amazon as well as other e-commerce platforms. So
fantastic.
That's a little bit about me, and I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Do you, just for the audience to get a better understanding, do you focus on specific categories with your agency, and do you focus on sellers and or vendors?
So we do both. I would say 80% of our clients have both vendor central and seller central, like a hybrid approach. Vendor central and seller central. In fact, one of the reasons why we partnered with Sellics is because you do such a great job with managing not just seller, but vendor accounts. And in terms of categories, we have, we kind of started out in the heritage was around CPG products. And emerging brands. Really, when I got started, I came out of the natural and organic foods industry. I am a mom. So those are the products that I love, and I buy myself. But I've been at it long enough so that many of these kind of emerging brands have emerged. So some of my clients are like the largest CPG companies in the world at this point. And we've also expanded outside of just CPG. So we have products across the board.
Okay, cool, fantastic. Just some housekeeping, guys. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat here. We'll pick them up and we'll make sure to answer them at the end, but also maybe throughout the show already. Feel free to also ask your questions on YouTube. We'll make sure to pass them along. And then there will be a recording available as always. So don't worry if you need to leave early. It will be on YouTube and, as I said, on Spotify as well for this. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So then we talked about sponsored ads, so sponsored products and sponsored brands, right? And also Amazon DSP. Now, what are the differences between those two advertising formats?
Sure. So I prepared a couple of slides. So if you wouldn't mind just popping up the first one, just high level differences between kind of search and display. The first is around just the pricing model. So search, you're paying when an ad shows up only when you click through, whereas display, you're paying for CPM pricing model. So you're paying for the impression. On search, where the ads appear, they're mostly on, they're on Amazon, but you can't control where on Amazon, whether desktop versus mobile. With display, the ads appear on and off Amazon, and you can control the platform. If you want, a lot of times what we see actually is that different ads perform better in different places. So we can kind of figure out what the best allocation is across desktop versus mobile. In terms of how the ads are served, in search, it's not just about, this is kind of a big misconception, but some people think that if you're just the highest bidder that you win in search. That's actually not true. It's based on many different factors, including like your relevancy, your order history, glance views, etc. So if you start serving ads or if you start buying keywords and your product doesn't sell, Amazon will stop surfacing those as well. So it's really about Amazon is wanting to actually sell product in conjunction with making money on the ad in this case. And they want ads to show up that are relevant to the consumer. So that's how search works. For display, the highest bid wins. So you can buy, pay to play to get your ads where you want them to be. In terms of targeting, for search, it's all about like the keywords, what ASINs you're looking at, what category you're in. So you guys are used to searching for products on Amazon. So it's really about like what those keywords are. That's what you're using to serve the ads. For display, it's more about the targeting is based on what your shopping behavior is, some lifestyle aspects, and what your purchase history is. And that means that Amazon is in a really unique position to be able to serve ads because they know how you spend your money. in a way that other programmatic offers don't. And they both do have the same 14-day attribution. So that's high level, kind of the differences between search and display.
Okay.
If you go to the next slide, just to give you a sense, like display placements on Amazon, you can see that the display placements are both on Amazon and off Amazon. So if I am searching for a product, or sorry, if I am in market for a product on Amazon, I might see it when I go to a category page, but then when I go to read the New York Times, I might see it there as well. So display will follow you, off of Amazon as well. And then if you go to the next slide, the search placements, this is what you guys are used to seeing. So if I search for laundry detergent, you'll see, it'll say sponsored, and those are the sponsored ads that show up within the Amazon search page. There's also like high-level banner ads that are the sponsored brands. So they show up within the context of your searching, of being on Amazon.
Okay, great. And so just for some clarity, sorry about that. Can you give us an indication on which pages outside of Amazon the ads will show up? I mean, is it anywhere on the website? Is it just on Amazon partner website? So where would they show up?
Yeah, it shows that, Amazon has many different partner websites. They own like IMDb. There are many different places across the web.
Okay. So it's not just a specific, not just Amazon websites. It is more broader, right? It could be New York Times.
It is broader, exactly, because they also bid against other placements as well.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So thank you very much for this overview. I think it was important to give everyone a sense of this. Now, so obviously display. If you look at this, right, and you hear that essentially you can advertise on pretty much all the websites that are out there, right? The New York Times and everything. It sounds quite appealing, right? So on the other side, historically, the display has not been used as much for brands that focus on driving sales compared to driving awareness, right? So what do you think, what's the reason why display has not been as prominent?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is, anybody who's been around Amazon for any period of time knows that it's constantly changing. Change is the only constant. It's what we always tell our clients.
That's certainly true.
It's the Buddhist ideal. So back in the day, before there was search even existed, you could buy display advertising, and it tended to be more upper funnel display. So what ended up happening is a lot of folks who were interested in driving sales on Amazon, or sales were their #1 KPI on Amazon. They experimented with display and they didn't see great results because it is higher funnel, because display is great at driving awareness. And, at the time, the vehicles were great at driving awareness, but not always at driving sales on Amazon. So a lot of folks kind of tried it and then didn't see the results. And so had kind of a bad taste in their mouth as a result. At the same time, Amazon search launched. And for those of you guys, who were there at that time, early movers were getting crazy results, incredible return on ad spend. There weren't many players in there. So people, if they had $1 to spend, it was 100% in search because they were just getting such incredible results. Well, like with everything, like I said, times have changed. So now, while search is absolutely critical, it's become a lot more competitive. It's not like a well-kept secret anymore. Everybody's doing it. The biggest players in the world are now kind of bidding the cost up. And at the same time, the display, the DSP side has launched new vehicles that are even lower funnel and better at driving conversion in some cases than search. So one example is Aysen Retargeting. Aysen Retargeting allows you, so if you're driving eyeballs to your Aysen page, your detail page, and that person does not convert, now you can retarget them with an ad. So if you think about it, that's even lower funnel than search. In search, if I'm looking for laundry detergent, I see something there, my checkbook is out, I want to buy it, that's low funnel. But if I've then clicked on it, gone to a detail page, looked at it, and then not purchased, that's even lower funnel. I've actually narrowed it down to the one item that I'm looking for. So one great tool that you can use, and we'll be talking about the 1-2 punch, is if you can get people to that detail page, and then if they're like me and they get distracted because they're multitasking, and you can get them back and focus, that's a great way to get them to convert. And so I think because a lot of people don't necessarily know that vehicle exists, or they have a bad taste in their mouth from when they tried it the first time, it's just not top of mind as people are thinking through, hey, what can I do to drive incremental sales right now? They're more thinking about like, hey, can I use this as more of a branding higher funnel? But there's a lot more to it than that now.
Okay, and so those, I mean, DSP, what's interesting is I think that DSP is the original advertising on Amazon, right? So DSP has been around before search, and then search came up, and then kind of DSP, well, was a bit less prominent, right? But so those changes that you've explained, how recent are they? I mean, is this something from last week? Is this something that you've noticed over the past year? I mean, when did DSP become more attractive in your opinion?
Yeah, so a couple things happened. I mean, it's been certainly over a year, but one of the things that Amazon did, if you guys have been paying attention to like where Amazon is actually making their money, they're making more money. They're number 3 past, behind Google and Facebook in terms of advertising. They're like catching up quickly. So they're making a ton of money on advertising. So there was a shift, maybe it was a year and a half ago, if I had to guess, where it used to be if you wanted to run DSP, you had to do it through Amazon. Yeah. And they decided that they just couldn't scale fast enough. So they chose, certain partners, and they opened up their APIs to different partners and allowed other agencies to be able to run DSP on behalf of their clients. Beekeeper is one of those agencies. We can run DSP. We have great relationships with Amazon, and we have a lot of expertise in terms of how to make that work. So it allows them to scale the amount of advertising that they can sell by partnering with folks that know what they're doing on Amazon, basically. So because of that, before they opened it up to other agencies, they had pretty high minimums, and they still do. If you want to work with Amazon, you can for DSP. They have a $35,000 minimum to get started. If you work with an agency, a partner agency, you're not beholden to that same minimum. So that opens it up for people to be able to test and learn in kind of less expensive dollars than they would be if they're going to Amazon. Okay. So yeah.
And that's only possible. So that's obviously a very, very relevant point, right? So this minimum spend of 35K, this is essentially gone, at least if you go through an agency like Beekeeper Marketing. Do you recommend a minimum budget nonetheless? I mean, is it something where I can just take $500 and play around a little bit? Or do you say, well, you should still have, I don't know, 5K, 10K?
Yeah, no, you need enough money to be able to test and learn. It doesn't need to be $35,000, and there is a fair amount of setup. So, you have to make it worth getting it set up, and you have to let it run for enough time that you get data. The way DSP works is you set up your targeting, you let it run, and then over time, there's an algorithm that optimizes the campaigns over time. And usually what we found is like significant improvement after the course of 3 months. So you want enough budget to be able to run for at least 3 months. And you have to kind of stick with your targeting. So you get it and you stick with it. You can't give up on it. And it's not like search where you just tweak it up every day to begin with. You've got to give it time for the algorithm to be able to work efficiently.
So 3 months at 5K each, 15K. Is that a fair starting point?
For as little as 15K over 3 months. So what we do is, every category is a little bit different, and every product is a little bit different. So we take a look at it and we put together a recommendation based on our experience with kind of similar products in the category.
Okay. And do you currently see, because you said that it's been not so popular more recently, right? So the advantage obviously in those bidding based systems is that if it's less popular, typically CPCs decrease as well. Would you say that currently there's this huge opportunity that a lot of people are not seeing? So if you jump on DSP now, you actually get a very good price, or is that not so much a case?
Yeah, I think in general, so yes, we're especially in categories where search is very saturated and expensive, like protein really comes to mind. And like there are some categories where it's just really, vitamins, laundry detergent, like it's really expensive to be able to drive discoverability on the platform. So part of it is about like relative to your other options, which is search, like how does it perform? So if you're in a super competitive search category, it definitely makes sense to focus on display. And then there are some categories where it's just doing very well. So, as with everything, there's no hard and fast rules. There's no like single playbook on Amazon. What you need is like experience in the category and a partner that can help you test and learn to figure it out. And so that's what we help our clients do.
Okay. Yeah. So Moti was asking in the questions here, whether you as beekeeper, you're accepting small single entrepreneur companies as well, or just big brands. So I think 15K already gives a certain indication, but I mean, can you, what's your point on this?
Sure.
Accepting small brands as well?
Yeah. So like I said in my, when I started this company, and, I have a passion for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. So I have a major sweet spot for folks who are, founders and like having a passion to try to start something up. So, I built my business back in the day on emerging brands. So like I said, that was a long time ago. And so a lot of them, we do have a lot of large CPG companies at this point, but we always try to make room for products and brands that are great. We have a Kickstarter program that's designed for companies that want to get up and running. It's kind of a like 3-month project, and then at the end we can look and see, we do some testing and learning, and then based on that we can decide whether to go forward and more long term. And at the end, you have a stable, you have an awesome foundation for growth, but it's not long term. So yeah, we have different programs to suit different needs for companies in various stages of growth. Okay, so definitely reach out.
Cool. Yeah. So guys, feel free to keep posting the questions. We will make sure to answer all of them. Now, so going back to this 1-2 punch, right? To this 1-2 strategy. So, okay, we understand now what display is and kind of the journey that it took, and it was not so attractive in the past. It's getting a lot more attractive now because of some changes that Amazon has been making. So what are the benefits of actually combining both, right? I mean, why don't just go and say, well, I put all my money on display or all my money on search?
Yeah, so they work synergistically. So if you are bringing people, if you think about search as bringing people into the search, like 90% of conversions happen on the first page of search. So if you're not showing up organically, you have to be there in search. So it's not an either or. Search is a must have. But like I said, if a person has clicked through and then they don't purchase, you can use display to kind of scoop them back up. So it's not an either or. Both of them working together is what makes sense. One thing I wanted to raise in terms of kind of the earlier question about how display may or may not be appropriate for a new brand. Display tends to be less appropriate for brand new companies or companies that are not display, meaning lower funnel Aysen retargeting display. And the reason is, in order to retarget, you need enough people who have landed on the page and not purchased to be able to have a target big enough to spend money against. So if I'm a brand new product and no one has seen my page yet, there's no one to retarget. So the first order of business that we work with any brand new brand is search. We've got to get enough people looking at those eyeballs. And it doesn't have to be search. It can also be upper funnel display to drive eyeballs. So that's one way you use potentially display to get more eyeballs so that you can retarget. Again, it's synergistically working together. You can use PR, you can use Prime Day activation. There are many things that you can do to drive eyeballs to the page, but until you have that segment, you have to have a certain critical mass before display does make sense.
Okay, so are you talking specifically about a display retargeting, or are you talking about display in general? Display retargeting,
lower funnel conversion based.
So right. So essentially you're saying that, well, if there's no traffic on the page, there's no one to retarget, right? So that's the first thing, is make sure that you have traffic. Now, do you think it makes sense to use display, kind of top of funnel display to generate this initial traffic? Or would you say that search is a better aspect for this?
I always start with search. Backing up, it depends on the KPIs. So if your goal is to drive sales on Amazon, then yes, you start with search. If your goal is to drive awareness, then display is a great way of doing that. And the other piece is, if your goal is to drive offline sales, display can be a great way to do that. So there have been a lot of studies that talk about how to attribute your ad spend. It's not always, a lot of people, everybody is shopping on Amazon, but not everybody may be shopping for your product or your product category on Amazon. More people actually research products on Amazon than on Google anymore. So if they may research there and then buy it. I mean, less so, they're not going to go to Best Buy after researching it because of COVID. But once things open back up, Amazon display and Amazon pages have a huge impact on offline sales too. So there are a lot of reasons to do it. But most of my clients, or a lot of my clients, are interested in how can I drive Amazon sales. And so we focus first on search for that.
Okay. And so, so just to be clear, so the 1-2 punch essentially is primarily the punch one is essentially search, and then punch two is the retargeting part of display. That's essentially the combination that you recommend?
Exactly, for conversion based or for driving incremental sales on Amazon.
All right. Yes, which I guess many in the audience are interested in.
Most people I'm talking to are interested in that, yes.
So we had some other questions from the audience coming. So Tracy was asking, what would be the ideal split of my budget for search versus display? Do you have can you give a sense, or is a rule of thumb? Or
yeah, well, here's what I'll say is that it's different for every single brand, and it's important to test and learn. And I'll give you an example. I have a client that has many different product lines. So they have hand soap, they have laundry detergent, they have, disinfectant, etc. So one of the things that we did, first of all, just to even assess, like, where should we, like, what's our best strategy going forward, is we looked at every single one of their ASINs to figure out, are they retail ready? And so before we even start with do we do search versus display, we say, do you have great reviews on your product? Are they in a pack size that's appropriate for the customer? Is it profitable for you? Is it profitable for Amazon to sell? If it's not profitable for Amazon, you can't run search on it. They will suppress, they will not allow you to run key types of search on it. So it goes off the table. Yeah. So we kind of do a heat map to say, okay, we looked at your entire catalog. Here are the ones that I think have the most potential in terms of, if we actually get somebody to your page, we think it's going to convert. In this case, we had a hand soap. It was it's a kind of natural hand soap. It was higher price point. It was, profitable enough. It was kind of borderline, but it came in a 6-count case, which is a little bit high, and it's liquid. So sometimes it would break. So it wasn't perfect. But we also had a laundry detergent where it was perfect for e-commerce. It was like not breakable. They were the pods. Both of them had, they had great reviews. So in just looking at retail readiness, we thought actually the laundry detergent would be great. So that was kind of first step. The second step is then to say, okay, what is a market like within Amazon? So in this case, we found out that to win the keyword natural hand soap, it costs $10 to win it 90% of the time. For laundry detergent, it costs $212 to win it 90% of the time. So even though we had this great product that would convert, it was just so expensive to be able to purchase that keyword. So if you think about those two examples, we did put search on both of them, right? But the amount that we put in display for the laundry detergent was much higher because there was less competition there. But for the hand soap, because they were natural, they were higher price point, there were so many of the big guys that were lower price point that were not able to do search because they were not profitable for Amazon, that actually we were able to win more of the search terms that way. So you can just see, category by category, it's different depending on what your products are, what the dynamics are in the marketplace. And so that's what we help our clients to do, is we help look at it from the consumer perspective, from the Amazon perspective. We put together our best guess at a strategy. We start running it. And then once we run it, we have actual data, and we're like, hey, you know what? You've got another $10,000. Let's shift money from hand soap to display, or hand soap to laundry detergent. Let's shift it from search to display. And we're constantly adjusting, optimizing for that, if that makes sense.
So essentially there is no best practice where you say it's 70 search, 30 display. It's essentially, well, it depends on how competitive situations are, how the prices are, and how things are converting. Yes. And then you can constantly shift budgets to wherever it is more.
The only constant I will say is that you have to have some baseline search running all the time. Is, and that assumes that you have a profitable product and you're allowed to. So you have to. For those that are not profitable, then your only option is display, right? Yeah. But I mean, having a partner that has intuition and has a broad base of clients that they can kind of build that intuition from, and I can give, if you told me what the different products were, I could probably give you a pretty good guess at how it would go. That's a lot of the value that we bring. It's not just we're following a playbook, is that we have experience having run them across. Sure.
Yes, I mean, I think that always helps. I mean, to drawing on experiences from other advertisers as well, instead of making all the experiences yourself. Now, in terms of, I'm just looking at the questions here. Let me search. There was a bunch of questions coming in. Thank you guys for this. So yeah, Francisco was asking if you're using search and display synergistically, does the current attribution model actually reflect this, similar to data-driven attribution modeling? I mean, so essentially, when it comes to attribution, can you share a little bit of how well this is working today? Can you actually analyze the performance, or is it very difficult because it's last click, and so it's hard to really tell what the performance is?
It's a little muddy, as with all attribution. Things that are not included in attribution are, for example, subscribe and save. So for like a lot of my CPG clients, like that's a big one. It's all about repeat purchase and lifetime value of a customer. So what we do at Beekeeper to try to get around it is we're looking, yes, we look at return on ad spend for display, for search, directionally speaking, and we look at it within the context of how you're targeting. So return on ad spend for your branded keywords means something different than for category, because if a person's literally searching for your brand, they're probably going to buy it anyway. So what we're looking to try to capture is like, how are we able to drive incremental sales, not just sales, but incremental sales to what you would have otherwise got. And there's not like a perfect way to get there, but we triangulate to it by looking at your sales dollars. So we can correlate our spend against each to what the sales are. And then we design the campaign so that they drive incrementality, and so that we can get as much incremental sales as possible. So the answer is it a super clean attribution model that comes from Amazon? The answer is no. If you're asking like, can we get pretty close? So, can we get directionally where you want to be, understanding incrementality? The answer is yes. And we do it by tracking the relationship between spend and actual total sales versus a baseline.
Okay, and so this is so you get those numbers from different sources, I guess. You don't just get them from the DSP dashboard, or you get them by combining, say, organic sales, total sales, advertising spend. You put it all together.
And so we at Beekeeper have our own proprietary tool. We call it Hive HQ, and it basically pulls information from Seller Central, from Vendor Central, from the display, from the DSP, from the search API. And it consolidates all the information together in one dashboard. And we have different ways of visualizing it to pull it all together to tell the story. And so that background, all of our account managers have access to it. We use it to drive the business. And some of our clients who are more savvy and really want to get into the details, they license that platform from us to be able to pull it all together as well.
Okay, so it's essentially kind of like a BI, your own internal BI solution where you plug into. Yes, I mean, that's one of the challenges on Amazon, that there's a ton of information, a ton of data, but it's in all different places. It's quite hard to fit it together and to overlap it also in a way that it's really the right day and the right attribution and all the things. Okay.
And I'll tell you what, like one aspect that's been so critical, especially with COVID, is not even just about attribution. It's like pulling in what your inventory position is, right, as well as what's happening on site. So like one thing that we're seeing like right now that's been a huge issue is that, early on, of course, everyone was out of stock because of COVID. Now, like a lot of the manufacturers have recovered, and so they've been in stock. Amazon's algorithm has ordered in maybe too much because now consumption is kind of like coming down. We're seeing a ton of inventory. Like if you look into the platform, you can see it in inventory on Vendor Central side. There's a ton of inventory, but especially for our clients that are have utilized cross dock, Amazon's still not able to like receive it quickly enough. So even though it's showing as having hit the warehouse, you're looking online and you're still seeing it showing out of stock online. So if you think about like, hey, if I'm running media, if I'm running display advertising, display will run against pages that are out of stock if you're not paying attention. And so we need to have the right data at our media teams are looking not just at like all of the information that comes from display, they're looking at supply chain information and like digital shelf information, because if something is out of stock, we are pausing those campaigns if our goal is to drive conversion. So our BI platform pulls all of the media, but it overlays inventory and digital shelf information to allow us to
but so that's a very important information, right? So display is running independently of your inventory levels. So
that's right. So you have to be really careful watching it. And you have to have the tools in place because things are going in and out of stock all the time, right? So having that automated is really critical to doing, a bang up job.
Right. And so obviously it also keeps running whether you own the buy box or not, right? So whether you sell or vendor, right, it just keeps running. Essentially, display doesn't care what's going on the product detail page. It's just like,
Yes,
okay,
so you
well,
have
here's
to
a
be
product detail page.
exactly.
Send it that way. Yeah. So that's certainly very important because well, if you plan it the wrong way, right, you're running out of stock and you pay for ads that go to a page. So it's a bad experience for the consumer. It's bad for you and your wallet, right? So that is something to watch very closely. And so essentially, if you do start a DSP campaign, you can assume that sales will be higher. Well, hopefully, right, for during the time of the campaign. So probably makes sense to increase your inventory to a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much for this for those details. That's very insightful. So I'm just trying to summarize this essentially. So you're recommending as a strategy, right? So you're recommending you start with the search to generate a certain amount of traffic on the page. Once you have this amount of traffic, you use DSP to retarget this Aysen, and so the consumers that were on that Aysen but they didn't buy, right? Is there any? So Varun was asking, is there any number that you would say, like number of sessions or the number of or the revenue when it starts making sense to retarget, or is it more of a gut feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think once we have clients that are getting at least in the $15,000 to $20,000 of revenue to them, so not Amazon revenue, but revenue
Right.
to them per month, it's worth thinking about. That's, once you get there, then, oftentimes you have enough. Sometimes our clients come to us and they've got a business that's up and running already. And so then you can start right out of the gate. Right. With retargeting. But if you're like kind of a newer brand and that's, in that kind of $15,000 to $20,000 range, we can like kind of run tests to see if it's okay. Going to work or not.
And then so we had another question from Moti. Essentially, what's the difference between DSP and sponsored display, right? So I mean, sponsored display, a fairly recent kind of advertising format. It's also display. How do you see this? How do you see SD versus DSP? I mean, is it the same? Is it different? Should I use one, the other, both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to test and learn all different placements. It's like anything, like I said, like every category is different. So yeah, you want to kind of test and learn to figure out what works best for you guys. My understanding is, I'll have to double check with the folks who are like the experts on my team on display, but I remember hearing that they're seeing actually really good results with sponsored display as well in some cases. So yeah. Like I said, there's not a blanket, not everything works for everybody, but we can take some educated guesses, and I am hearing good things about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sponsored display has a lot less settings essentially, I guess, than DSP, right? I mean, it's not as
DSP is very, very customizable.
Yes.
And actually, the more you work with, like Amazon has kind of rules about how often they will do reporting and what they will tweak and at what cadence. A lot of times the agencies are a bit more flexible. We do custom reporting and, we've seen, one area particularly is around whether things perform better on mobile versus display. We're seeing kind of big differences across brands. So we're shifting dollars one way or the other. So you have that flexibility more on display.
On DSP, yeah. Okay, so I guess it makes sense. Any other comments for you from your side regarding this strategy? Any other things or?
I guess the one thing I would say is kind of going back to like what's happening because of COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like, I also want to be clear that higher funnel display can be a great thing too. It's just, we always like to set expectations because a lot of folks come to us and say, we want to drive Amazon sales. Is higher funnel display long term? It helps, but like in the short term, going to work. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to do brand awareness, higher funnel display is awesome for doing that. Typically there are tons of advertisers because they know so many people are shopping on Amazon, pretty much everyone. And because Amazon has so much information about who you are and what you buy, like what you're willing to spend your money on, that's very valuable to advertisers. So even companies that don't sell anything on Amazon will buy display. And like, if you think about it, like the airlines, Hilton, they're not selling rooms on Amazon, but they are buying up a lot of the display advertising. But since COVID, they're not. A lot of them have pulled out. And so right now, just like with search, when everyone was going out of stock and kind of pulling out off of search, and we were seeing, first of all, like super high conversion and like low, the bids went down. We're still seeing that on display. So there is kind of a unique time where kind of industry has not quite recovered. So if you are selling on Amazon, there's a good chance that you're going to get more bang for your buck on display now than you would have pre-COVID.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely an interesting point. You remind me of something I just shared in the chat, a blog post that we released, I think 2 or 3 days ago, where we essentially analyzed the performance of and how the impact on COVID essentially on Amazon advertising. And so fundamentally, I mean, advertising revenue is up 30%, CPCs are down 20%, right? So that those people that are running ads today are seeing a ton of traffic at a very low price. Well, very low, at a relatively low price compared to where it was before, right? And so obviously for display, I didn't think about this, but obviously you're right? So I mean, display, DSP is not used just by the people that are selling on Amazon. It's used by everyone that wants to target Amazon shoppers, essentially. And it could be Hilton, it could be the airlines and all of them, right? And obviously those out, yeah, cool. Great. Now, would you say that lower funnel display, so essentially retargeting benefits all clients, or is this restricted to, let's say, the larger clients, or is it really just as one criteria of, well, the moment that you have enough traffic, you're ready to go. It doesn't matter if you're large or small.
Yeah, the moment you have enough traffic, you should test it. And then you can compare, hey, once you've done a test, you can say, hey, am I better off spending my next dollar on display or on search? And you can look at, we show return, like when we do reporting for our clients, we're showing them, this is how much money we spend on search, and we break it down by similar targeting. Mm-hmm. And this is what the return on ad spend was for search. Here's what it was for display for similar targeting techniques. Based on that, like we recommend you kind of move your money this way or that way. One thing to know is, because again, going to the point where you can only retarget people who have landed on your page, and that's a finite number of people. Like you may get great results in terms of return on ad spend, but you may not be able to scale it in the same way. So that, it's like kind of another factor. Like you may say, oh, I want to, like, let's spend more on that, but there's no more people to be had. So you have to then look at, okay, what are other ways that we can get more people into the funnel, and whether that's through search or PR or higher funnel display.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And so would you recommend, so obviously, I mean, the retargeting on its own probably doesn't make sense, but if you think about DSP more top of funnel, is this something that you recommend as a standalone strategy, or would you say this is also just complementary to search?
Whenever you can do search, you should have it on, but there are some situations where you can't run a lot of search, especially if you have profitability issues. So it used to be like a couple years ago where we would run, we still run a profitability analysis for every single Aysen. And this is more relevant on the vendor central side, because seller central, most of the time, you're not going to sell unless you're making money. But on the vendor central side, if an item is not profitable for Amazon, we would not recommend promoting it, because it would get to a point and Amazon would crap it out or can't realize the profit. So they would discontinue the product. And so we said, don't spend your money. You're just going to accelerate the time when that happens. Now, Amazon won't allow you to do search against anything that's not profitable, but they have been less aggressive about discontinuing. There's always this pendulum swing that happens with Amazon. One year they're really focused on profit and they're going to discontinue any items that are not profitable. But the last year, the pendulum swung back the other way to the fact that they want to offer everything. They want to be the everything store. They're not discontinuing items. They started offering, 1-day shipping instead of 2-day shipping. So it's definitely like they're willing to take some profitability hits. I have with a lot of products, they're willing to, they took away add-ons. So for cheaper products, they're still shipping them out, and they're not getting. So it gives you the option potentially, if you were a marketer and you knew it was not profitable, and so you could not run search on it, but you still want to get the word out about your brand and try to sell it. In that case, you could use DSP to do that. We would talk through what the ramifications are going to be in terms of like your vendor negotiations at the end of the year, because those are very real. But we have had some clients say like, okay, we can't run search. we still want to drive sales on Amazon, and DSP is a really effective way to do that. So in that case, they do a DSP only strategy. So that's number one. And number two is we have brands that are like, hey, we also want to drive brand awareness. We have folks who are like on the brand media side who are looking at, hey, should I spend on TV or should I spend on Amazon? Like, what's going to get me better targeting and more reach? And in that case, they will do a fully higher funnel display advertising campaign. So, you know, again, it all goes back to like what your objectives are and what your KPIs are. So that's where we always start, is like really understanding what the goals are of a client. And then we can kind of present the different options, like present the pros and cons, and like get in there and just get dirty and test and learn.
Yeah. I mean, that's always a challenge in these kind of webinars. I'd love to give precise answers and say, well, this is how it's done. But the reality is, well, it depends on what your goals are on your company. If you're very well-established brands, DSP is going to be easier because of the brand recognition you already have, right? I mean, it's very hard to give one standard answer for everyone. But I think, I mean, some indications, right? Like you did, and some examples of like, if you're in that situation, we'll do it this way. Following situation, do it that way.
And, you know, once it's a lot easier for me if I can hear what the specific example is. Like I said, I have a lot of experience, so I can give my best, you know, gut for what I think can happen. So I encourage people to kind of reach out to me if they have any specifics.
Yes. Let me see if there are any other questions. I just because there were a bunch of questions. I think we went through most of them, but let me just see. Well, oh yeah, hold on. Actually, there are a bunch of more. Do you have another few minutes, Lynn?
Sure.
Let's see. What are the best practices for creating your ads? What can and can't you include in a DSP ad?
So there are like standard templates that Amazon uses. There's many different sizes that you can choose from. We really advocate for doing custom creative and not just relying on the Amazon template. We've done a lot of A/B testing, and so we have a good sense for like what creative is going to pop better than others. But yeah, there is some flexibility to do custom creative on display.
Okay, and so the custom creative, is this something that the brand would do, or is this typically something that you do as an agency?
Either way. So some of our clients have existing kind of creative teams in-house, and we can just give them direction on like best practices, and then they turn it around for us. Or if for those who want us to take care of it, we can do that as well.
Okay, let's see. What kind of DSP performance reporting does AMG/Beekeepers offer? Is there any data visualization similar to paid search tools? So yeah, the reporting side, how does that look like? Do you? I think they made an upgrade there some time ago. Is that possible? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like if you go with Amazon, it really depends on how much you're spending. So obviously, the more you spend, the more flexible they are. For us, like we find that for the average client that runs DSP, like we have a standard cadence, and the timing it depends on like how big the campaigns are. You need enough data to be able to make it meaningful. But yeah, like I said earlier, we have a platform called Hive HQ that helps us do data visualization and post-campaign analysis that is proprietary to Beekeeper that we are proud of and helps drive great decision making.
Yes, I mean, I think ultimately it's always, after a certain point, I mean, you just want to have an export and then process in Excel or in your own tool, right? Let me see. So Nate was asking, other than the typical bid and keyword changes, are there any actions the brand can take to improve an active search campaign? So, I mean, it's more related to search. You want to answer that? You have some ideas?
Yeah. So sorry, say the question again.
If you're running a search campaign, right? I mean, usually what you do is you change the bid or you add keywords, right, to your search campaign. Is there anything except for changing keywords and changing bids that brands can do to improve performance or drive traffic for the search?
Yeah, there are like many different things. One is just making sure how you group them. So making sure that the targeting strategy, like that you're grouping by targeting strategy, so that when you're looking at your return on ad spend, it's within the context of targeting. So one mistake we see people make is like kind of putting all keywords into one campaign. You can kind of narrow things. You can do campaigns by Aysen. So there are many, many different techniques on how to be able to get really precise results that are not just about bidding up and down. It's about like, how do you structure your campaigns to allow you the most flexibility to make like the right decisions about, how to bid up within the context of the targeting. But we could do a whole other webinar on just how to set up campaigns and like best practices in terms of, there's also like phrase versus broad versus like, how are you targeting that way? I mean, there's a lot to that, but yes.
So one thing that I like about search, I mean, if you think about it, right, click-through rate is a very important metric. And if you can increase click-through rate, I mean, it's going to improve your quality score. You're going to pay less. You're going to more traffic. So click-through rate is very important. And so I think one of the big drivers for click-through rate is obviously the first image, the main image of the product. So while this might not be directly related to ads, right? People might consider this more as like organic optimization. It's definitely something you can do as well. So A/B test the first image and see how this affects click-through rate. You have the number for the click-through rates in your search reporting, and then you can essentially improve your click-through rate just by A/B testing the main image, right? So it's a simple thing, but I agree with you, Lynn. There are probably 100 different things you can do. Generally speaking, whatever improves click-through rate and whatever improves conversion rate is beneficial for your ads as well, for your search ads, right? Not just for your search ads, but for all ads, right?
Same thing with taglines for sponsored brands. I mean, there's you can test.
Sponsored brands as well, getting more and more attention, right? So when it was asking, is there a model that you can share for which ads are best for which part of the funnel? So if you think about the marketing funnel, right? How is there a model that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that sponsored brands tend to be higher funnel than others. But yeah, it's again, that's kind of a longer topic, and I'm happy to follow up and kind of get you in touch with some of the folks who are like doing all of the optimizations day to day. But it's part of all of that is like laying out the different strategies, category, even within different types, unique types of brands, whether it's sponsored brands or sponsored products. Like if you're looking at category keywords, like if I'm looking at laundry detergent, that's much higher funnel than if I'm looking at something really specific in terms of, like this scent, lavender laundry detergent. So like the keywords you choose will also impact whether it's high or low funnel as well.
Right.
So there's many ways, there's many levers that you can pull. And like the one thing I want, like the big myth I wanted to dispel today is that that display is only high funnel. It's actually very high funnel and low funnel, but search is the same way too. Search can be very low funnel, or you can put broad search terms and make it be very, higher funnel, probably not as high as display, but yeah, different techniques allow you to hit different people.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably the school book kind of categorization would be probably display is highest in the funnel, then sponsored brands, then sponsored products, and then display again for the retargeting. Right?
Retargeting, yeah.
But I agree with you that depending on how you structure it, right, you could have situation where sponsored brands or sponsored products would be higher in the funnel than some display situations. So it depends on the targeting as well, right? I think it's not as clear, but kind of high level. That's I think how typically you would think about it, right? I think I agree with you. I mean, it's more nuanced than this. It's not just display is top of funnel and search is lower funnel, right?
I think that's like the message for I hate to say it depends, but that's why it's like great to have somebody who understands what it depends on, so that we can assess it and then get the right strategy for it.
So let me take one more question, because we're really, I always plan those sessions for 30 minutes and I've never made it in 30 minutes. I think I should change the planning, but let's maybe take one more question from Mira. So you mentioned existing templates that Amazon is providing. Is this image or text only or video too? So is it image and text only, or is it video too? So do you have video templates?
That is a good question. You know what? I don't know the answer, but I can follow up with that. I think that there are video templates as well. And then they have kind of guidelines for for the time, etc. But I'd have to double check that.
All right. So what's I mean, we couldn't go through all the answers. If people have more questions, what's the best way to reach you?
Reach out to me at lynn@beekeepermarketing.com. And I'd love to hear from you.
lynn@beekeepermarketing.com. Yes, otherwise, yeah, can I find you on LinkedIn as well? I guess so, right?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Ping me there.
Okay. Lynn from Beekeeper Marketing. Thank you very much, Lynn, for being here today. That was very insightful. I really like this new and fresh perspective on display, and getting rid of this old notion of, well, DSP and display is not really working. It's just burning through money, but it's actually it can deliver incremental revenue, specifically if you combine it with the existing search products, right? So I think those are great insights. Thank you very much. I had let me just share another link here in the chat box. It's a link to a survey. So the survey is about this show itself, right? So if you have the time, please take those 30 seconds or so to share your feedback, so to help us improve the show. Let us know what kind of topics you want to talk about, so we can take your feedback into consideration for the planning of the next sessions. Lynn, that was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
So great to see you. I want to meet your baby soon.
yes. Once the travel restrictions are lifted, I'll make sure that we stop by. Okay. And then guys, make sure to contact Lynn if you have any questions. Beekeeper Marketing, as I said, definitely a great partner of Sellics, and can really recommend them. We've been working together for a long time, and we've seen very happy clients with this. So feel free to contact Lynn and her team. And then tune in again next Thursday. The topic is not entirely clear. It is likely that it's going to be again in the advertising space, because we want to bundle topics together. And so maybe we go continue on DSP, because there's quite some interest there, but we'll see yet. Make sure to fill in the survey, and then we can take your feedback into account about the topics. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day, good evening, depending on where you are. And Lynn, see you around. Yeah.
All right. I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. See ya.